Hi, everybody. It's me, Owen. I'm going to be making a video for us today. No Mike, no Tana. It is just myself. I'll do my very best to make it somewhat interesting. And hopefully, you guys stick around and don't fall asleep. It's beautiful out here in Texas. The weather's fantastic. For those of you in California, I'm just going to assume that the weather's also great. It always is. So, I'm a little bit envious, but I do love good Texas weather. So, well, what do we want to talk about? So there's a lot of drama going on in the markets. Well, more so headlines being thrown around, right? We've got the Iranian conflict that's kicked off. Oil prices have surged over, $100 a barrel at one point. We've even heard the phrase stagflation or the possibility and rumors of a potential rate hike. Yet the market, and if I pull this up here, is only actually down around 4%. And I know that sounds like a lot, but in all due respect, with all of the different headlines and crazy stuff happening, both internally and externally in the market, you'd feel like this might be down around 10%. So, why is that? What's happening? So, to explain it, I'm going to look at a chart that JP Morgan released. They called it their chart of the week, and it tells a really interesting story. So, it looks at correlation and volatility in the volatility S&P and how they are moving simultaneously. Right now, we're at a bit of a divergence. So, volatility is really high, whereas correlation is really low. Now, there's an old adage, and my professor would be really excited that I'm actually using this in a work setting. So kudos to him. But the old adage is this: in times of crisis, correlations run to one, meaning we all run in a herd, right? We enter a panic. Think of like antelopes on the Serengeti. They're all hanging out eating grass, but as soon as there's an inkling of danger around, maybe it's a lion lurking or a pack of lions nearby, they all scatter and run for the hills. They do it all simultaneously. So the same thing can be said with correlation. In times of panic, think back to Liberation Day, right? Signified over here. This would be our Liberation Day. Um, we all move together. Correlations run to one. So, what's really happening now? Oh, we find ourselves at a really interesting point. Volatility is somewhere around 2026, signifying a really high level of sort of macro anxiety due to the fact that we're at war, oil prices are high, there's a bit of stagflation, things are uncertain, but yet correlations are really low, meaning markets, sectors, equities, they're moving opposite of each other. They're canceling each other out. So I want to look at it. I want to look at this chart more and talk more about it. But I created this to kind of give us a better idea and talk through exactly how correlation and volatility move and what it means for the market. So let's start with this. When correlation and volatility move together, but they move upwards, this is called systematic panic. Both lines spike. If I go back to this chart right here, this is both lines moving up. They're both spiking, right? That is the scary stuff. That's when we have systematic panic. That's Liberation Day. That's the Iranian conflict kicking off. That's oil prices surging to north of $100 a barrel. That's when we get large sell-offs in the market, right? There is no diversification that can save you because for the most majority of the market, everything is being sold and liquidated for cash. Think of it as your bank runs. Now, when everything moves together downward, so if we go back to our chart here, when everything moves downward, so closer to September 2025, well, that's kind of our Goldilocks period. Let me move back over to this one. That's our Goldilocks period, meaning there aren't any real scary headlines. There isn't any expectation of something bad going on. And so the markets are sort of chugging along. You can diversify away certain styles of risk and not be too worried about mass panic and mass liquidations. This is where we want to be. It's a hard place to be because of headlines and the way the world goes. You just can't control everything. And so there's going to be levers that get pulled, whether we like them or not. But it's a good place to be. Okay. Well, then what happens when they move in opposite directions? So VIX, again, remember, this is our fear gauge. So when VIX moves up, When we get scared, but the correlations move down, this is where things get a little bit interesting. We get sector chaos. This is where we're currently at right now. I call this a picker's market. It can be a nightmare for pickers, or it can be, the dream for these stock pickers, because you can make a lot of really good money in this area. So, what is happening right now? Well, right now, we've got sectors like energy doing super, super well. Meanwhile, sectors like the financials are falling quite a bit. But then you also have semiconductors doing really well. Yet AI application, that sector is also falling. So you got a bit of a tug of war happening. And so the winners are perfectly offsetting the losers, just enough to keep the uh, index or the market insulated from the real chaos that's kind of happening underneath everything. They call this sort of the shock absorber of the mass panic. Now, conversely, what happens if the VIX moves down? So panic falls, but correlation moves up. This is something similar to that of 2024 and early 2025, when everybody was making a lot of money on tech, more specifically AI, infrastructure, NVIDIA, AI chips, all of that stuff, right? Everybody was invested in the same stuff, yet stocks were moving higher. We were all making a lot of money. Portfolios were increasing. Returns were great, yet everything was moving in the same direction. This is a fragile place to be, meaning any type of bad news in the sector we're all invested in can cause what? A mass panic. And we're all of a sudden here, right? We're all of a sudden where our VIX and our correlation lines are spiking up together and there's a mass liquidation. So I come back to this chart. What does that mean for us right now? Well, right now, like I said earlier, we're sitting at a relatively high moment of volatility with low moments of correlation. Is this a bad thing? No. Is it a good thing? No. What does it mean? It means we have to be specific. We have to be careful. You have to have a plan. So at the Lynn Group, as you guys have all known, we put together plans that allow us to deal with this volatility. If you don't have a plan in place, we get into this world of trying to time the market, pick perfectly, and that's almost impossible. It's a very hard thing to do. So in times like this, when there's a little bit of confusion or not quite sure what's going on, it's probably best to rely and resort back to what we know best, our plan. Stick to the plan, ride the wave, rely on the portfolio managers to do exactly what they need to do. I hope this makes sense. I try to do my very best to explain a rather more complex topic. You'll start to hear it if you're watching the news. They'll talk about the VIX a lot. It's often a pretty good measure of sort of the volatility in the market and where the analysts expect investors to be moving or heading towards. But you can use this as a good gauge as to where the market might be heading, or simultaneously where the market is sitting right now. So, meaning if the war in Iran starts to, I don't know, even itself out, get a little bit more figured out, the Strait of Hormuz opens back up, oil starts to fall back down, things start to open back up, you have a world where the market is really ready to take back off. And so, are we at the bottom of sort of any lasting problems? Maybe not so much. There's always room for more bad news, but it paints the picture that there's opportunity in front of us, right? It's not all doom and gloom. There's a reason why the market is sort of stuck doing what it's doing, and that's okay, because there's a world where you can be really efficient and do really, really well. I hope this helps. I hope this brings some bit of clarity as to why the market is kind of staying where it's at. We'll be interested to see how things start to play out with the war, and we'll definitely bring more content along the way as we get more information on what happens with the Fed and other things in the market. So, all right, till next time. Thank you guys.